Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, the recap of the final stage of the Albanian Grande Partenza, brought to you by Bicycle. A word on them in a second. From Vlore to Vlore, they do a loop south in a hilly region on the coast overlooking the Mediterranean, and then they come back north inland, no, on the coast rather, and finish with a flat sprint in the last 30 Ks. There's some really steep climbs in the middle of this stage where riders came into difficulty. Most of them were uncategorized, which is kind of crazy. Like there was literally a 2.2K 10% climb, not even a Cat 4, a 5K 7% climb with 16% ramps, not even a Category 4. And then the main climb of the day, the Logarace climb, 10.5K, 7.5%, pretty steady on a highway-style road up to 1,000 meters, and then a long, fast, technical descent in the first half to the coast, where the last 30 or 25 Ks were pretty flat, but fast roads, quite good roads in parts, and then uphill and some other sections in the hill zone was bad roads, actually.
Exactly, and this was a stage where lots of stuff could happen. There were multiple scenarios on the table. The scenario we were looking for initially after stage one was Little Trek is definitely going to try and control this race. We know that from the start. Always Little Trek will try to control the breakaway, make sure there's not a dangerous breakaway up the road. And if that breakaway is up the road, try to make sure it doesn't get a notable amount of time, because the goal for Mes Pedersen and Little Trek in this stage is we want to try and win this stage or podium this stage to try and take the Maglia Rosa back from Primoz Roglic, who is 1 second ahead of Pedersen before the stage starts. So that's an important factor to keep in mind going into this stage.
Who can beat Pedersen in a sprint here? From his wheel, with Vacek giving him a lead out.
Olaf Koy, but the mountain is a bit of a problem.
So yeah, Bennett, Koy, Bernard didn't do it. That's it, right?
Groves, maybe?
Groves maybe. I'm not saying Pedersen's like super, super fast, but he's faster than everybody else pretty much. So if you do go to the finish, especially if he's surrounded by teammates, especially if Vacek can give him the lead out, because Pedersen can lose a sprint if he has to launch it. If he has to launch it 350 meters to go, he can lose a sprint, but not if he has a full lead out. So I was when you look at stage one, Benji, where we're like, oh, that's a versatile sprint stage, and how selective that was. And then you look at this profile, applying the same logic, to me, this stage should be just as, if not more, selective.
In a way where, at the end of the day, the question before the stage was going to be, it wasn't going to be, is Olaf Koy going to get dropped?
No, 100%.
Is Wout van Aert going to get dropped? I was of the opinion that he was always going to get dropped on this stage, especially after seeing the time trial yesterday. Stage one, he was suffering quite a bit on shorter climbs. That doesn't necessarily translate to a longer climb immediately, but I was still expecting him to be dropped. And the same for most of the other sprinters like Groves, who also dropped quite early on stage one. So the set up for the stage was, can Mes Pedersen survive against potential attacks from GC riders, perhaps, but more likely to be stage hunters like Astana boys? Outside of the Astana boys, maybe a Vine, a Del Toro, I wasn't really feeling after stage one. Maybe some other riders still on the table to do similar stuff. So for me, that was a setup. Are those riders able to put enough of a dent on the climb, the big climb of the day? You said the percentages. We're talking about 10 kilometers, 7.5% roughly. That's a hard climb. That's a hard enough climb to be able to put pressure on Little Trek and on Pedersen. And if you can't drop him on the climb, to at least reduce Little Trek to a limited amount of riders, to make it hard to come back to any attackers that do happen on the climb itself.
Because if you have Pedersen in the group, say in a much more tired group in the last 25 Ks, just with Ciccone and Vacek, no Verona, no Conrad, so no Søren Kragh, then you have opportunities. But it was a strange stage in breakaway formation. There were big groups going, but somewhat surprisingly, teams were helping, from what I could see, helping Trek make the break small. Visma, Alpecin, De Koenig were actually, and the only, I would say, big team, Decathlon 2, that had the right idea was Ineos. Ineos wanted to be in the break, not just with Tarling, who gets in and creates it. They also were trying to get a second guy in Turner, because you're not going to beat Pedersen in a sprint, and then your other option is to try and go on the climb, but with those rouleurs, better that they get in the break. And so I was surprised of how easily a team like, with Van Aert not looking in good shape, like not Visma not jumping in or Wanty not jumping in, Louis Meintjes or I don't know. Jaco. Yeah.
It's a team of basically stage hunters for me. Yes, maybe one or two riders on that team have some ambitions in GC to maybe go for a top 10, but the majority of that team are riders that I would like to see make a move on the stage, whether it's in the breakaway, whether it's to attack on that big climb.
Depreto.
You can't wait for a sprint because you can't do anything if you wait for a sprint.
And they're filled with guys who actually can win a sprint of 6 guys, 5 guys, but they can't win an actual. So Depreto actually, he wins small group sprints relatively consistently, but not against proper guys like Pedersen. And yeah, I was really surprised actually this happens every year, Benji, but yeah, the lack of ambition of many teams who didn't want to. I know, and this is not to downplay how good Trek were.
Yeah,
I know that we'll
get to that.
It's the stage design as well. It's a relatively, some hills like you needed a tug buddy, which Benji's got the t-shirt on. You need a tug buddy to get in the breakaway because on the flat start on the highway, and Trek are staring you down with Conrad, with Dunhola, with Jacopo Mosca. They did a fantastic job, but still everyone gave up really, really fast. And I was thinking, like if Tarlink wants to get in the break, why isn't Marco Brenner in the break? Why isn't Quinten Hermans in the break? Like, are they really thinking they're going to win from the peloton?
I agree with you. And like with Alpecin de Koning, I'm like, okay, you build a relatively one-dimensional team. In my opinion, you've got Gross for the sprints. And for me, Quinten Hermans' form in the last couple of weeks has not been good enough to look at the stage and say he really has a chance. Even in the breakaway, I'm betting he gets dropped right now. I just don't see it right now. I hope to see a change in that maybe on the gravel stage or a stage that fits him a little bit more than a 10 kilometer, 7.5% climb or something. But I reckon the other breakaway riders there will be strong as well. But we made our point, I think, at this point. The breakaway ended up being a controllable breakaway. I saw this breakaway, 6 riders up the road. Dries de Bond for the Decathlon AG2R, Lorenzo Germani for Groupama FDJ, Joshua Tarling, like you said, for Ineos. So credits to them again. I've said it numerous times this year already. 2024 Ineos would not be doing that. Mark Donovan Q46.5 in the breakaway as well. Chris Hamilton for Picnic Postenel and Alessandro Tonelli for Volti Cometa, who's actually a better climber than I thought, especially shown on this stage as well. But we saw panic. We saw panic in the peloton when another Italian pro team realized that they weren't in this group, and the Bardiani boys sent Marcellucci in the counterattack. But you reckon they're going to get whipped tonight?
If one of the Italian invitational teams like Polti are in and Bardiani are not in, it's big problems, and the director will go crazy on the radio. Yeah, no dessert. So if one of them, because then you can't have the excuse, it was Tarling and the big world tour teams. It was way too hard. We couldn't get in. It's like, Polti were in. So that was, not funny to see, but Marcellucci, then Trek basically locked it down. They started to control with the help of Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe Benji. Pachi Villa said it was to honor the jersey. I actually don't believe him. I think Red Bull offered to help a bit so that Pedersen could go back into pink. I think Red Bull were happy with a controlled stage.
That is the first thought that came into my mind when I saw the actions of Red Bull in the stage. That Red Bull would be doing that, okay. But even regardless, I don't feel like it was necessary in the first place. Little Trek was always going to be able to control that 6-man breakaway. So at that point, you're basically spending energy you don't need to spend because Little Trek is going to control.
Give Moscon something to do.
But like, in a sport where energy management is very important, I would like to see teams not spend the rider energy unnecessarily. And that's what Red Bull Bora is doing here. It's not a big deal at the end of the day. I gotta say, Pachivila did say it was to honor the jersey. You don't believe it? I'd like to not believe it. But when I heard that sentence, I'm like, if any DS utters the words, we're riding at the front to honor the jersey as the only reason for doing so, which we don't believe was the case here, but if it is the only reason to do so, send that DS to jail for 7 years for me. Genuinely. It's completely unreasonable. Complete waste of energy.
The funny thing is, Roglic is the least honor the jersey GC rider. Roglic hates the jersey. Hates it. He's got to do 2 hours extra media interviews, doping control, which takes another half an hour. You've got to do all this extra stuff that comes with the jersey. And then you got to ride, maybe people looking at you to control the race. He hates the jersey in week 1, loves to give it away. And, he gave it to Ben O'Connor, gave him a lovely lead. Last year in the Vuelta, you don't have to go to that extreme lengths. But yeah, I think probably for them, I would have rather a break went with a Davide De Preto, with a Filippo Zana, with a Tonelli, who took the jersey by 3 minutes, and then they can progressively lose the time over the next 10 days.
And then that team who has that jersey would help control a couple of stages where Cora wouldn't necessarily have to do all the work. But
before we get to the hill zone where the race does start to kick off, listing a bike takes less than 2 minutes. Seriously, less than 2 minutes on Bicycle. That's 120 seconds last time I counted. So if you've got a bike gathering dust or some spare cycling gear lying around, you can cash in with Bicycle, the go-to marketplace for buying and selling pre-owned bikes, parts, and accessories across the EU and the US. And shipping, that's maybe something you are, okay, you can list it really fast. Tick. Shipping, also convenient. Bicycle sends you the packaging materials and a prepaid label, and they pick the bike up right from your doorstep. Listing is always free. Within 120 seconds, you can take your phone, go to the bike that's been sitting gathering dust, and you can take some photos and list that. It's free. And then when you actually sell the bike, there's a small seller protection fee when it sells. But with our code LRCP20, you can cut that fee by 20%. That's LRCP20 to cut that fee by 20%. And that's not just bikes either. There's wheels, group sets, jerseys, even a helmet that might not fit. And the best part is those listings are 100% free, no fees at all. So head to bicycle.com/LRCP20 to learn more, and you support the show while you're at it. The Hill Zone, Benji. It started to kick off a little bit.
Well, kick off in certain ways. We got to talk about the big moment of today's race, and it's not any action related to actual riders doing anything. It's a major event in the race itself. We saw an attack by a goat in the race, and I had to look closely. I thought, why is Tadej Pogacar in this race? But it wasn't that goat. It was a different goat. It was a regular goat, and it looked like the goat was in a little bit of a peloton next to the road on the left side and decided to break away from that peloton, in doing so attacking our peloton. And Dion Smith was the rider that was the aim for that goat actually on the road, and it was a pretty big jump into the ride. What's your analysis on the race here?
Well, there's a dog on the side of the road as well. I think there might have been more goats to the left-hand side. Then a policeman was trying to corral them. Now, I'm quite familiar with livestock, and especially in mountainous areas such as this. I mean, this isn't the Pyrenees, but yes, I do have daily contact with both domesticated livestock, such as goats of varying sizes.
Such as yourself? And
myself, of course, goat podcaster. And also wild animals like mouflon. There's a 5 or 6 mouflon. They know me by sight. Toby knows them by sight and smell. And they're unpredictable at the best of times. Some days they run away. Some days they just look at Toby. And maybe the helicopter's making a big amount of noise. And so, the surprising thing to me was the goat. It didn't want to exit the road because it saw a dog off camera on the right-hand side. The dog was comatose. This black dog just ignores the goat. The goat obviously can scale fences very well. It's always incredible watching them do that. The way they can, even on a vertical cliff, you can see some of them in the Pyrenees. So Dion Smith was also suitably impressed, as I was, with what was happening. He braked to watch, and then that was the last exciting thing in this stage.
Yeah, it actually was, to be honest. Gotta say, dogs and livestock on the road in this race, for example. I've been to the Tour of Turkey, a Tour of Antalya actually, Tour of Istanbul, like 100 dogs per race that the riders have to avoid. It's a real danger. In this race, there were a couple of dogs crossing the road as well, so quite a bit dangerous as well. But fortunately, no consequences for Dion Smith in Goat Gate there. But let's get back to the actual racing, unfortunately, because the Goat Gate was pretty fun. We've got an uncategorized climb coming. We're now in the halfway point of the race. You've had your little nap. I've had my little nap. The race is on again, or that's at least what we're hoping. We've got an uncategorized climb with steep sections in it. We see before that little trek taking most of the control. You said it already. Red Bull Bora also helping with the control. This is where it kind of changes, where when the climb started, it felt like Little Trek was initially holding themselves back a little bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, the brake was in check, and you don't really need to. Your brake's already been kept in check for you with the help of Red Bull. The last thing you want for Trek, you have this stage in phases. Easy brake to control, tick. Red Bull help, keep it under 3 minutes into this hill zone. In the actual hills and the steep climb, you want to keep numbers, and you want to keep the pace steady, reasonably hard enough obviously to drop other sprinters, but steady for Pedersen. What you don't want is it to become out of control, climbers attacking. Is Ciccone respond? Like Ciccone keeps saying he's not here for GC. He's Italian. He's in good shape. I'm sorry. He's going to help, and he's been very unselfish. But you don't want to have a situation where Ciccone is really having to kill himself on a climb to bring back other climbers. You don't also want to have a group of 20 with just Pedersen and Vacek, and in the final 20Ks with UAE having 4 guys that are like McNulty and Vine attacking. So you want a controlled race, and that's why they keep it controlled. The sprinters do start dropping. Coy gone. Sam Bennett gone. Zylard. Luke
Groves pretty soon after.
Groves in this zone. He didn't even make it to the base of the final climb. We saw on these steep pinches, Van Aert's head was bobbing. Sometimes the Red Bull helmet may be a curse because you can see it through the peloton. You're looking for it.
Yeah.
And he was bobbing in this zone. And then the group, but then the riders that made it pretty much in shape over these hills, not many more of them got dropped actually on the next climb. The next phase was the excitement was Bernal's mechanical.
Exactly. There was a whole mechanical phase in this race, and there was a cobble sector. And me as a Flemish person, every time we were born as a Flemish person, we get fed cobble sectors as a child. We're like, out of Quadramont, out of Quadramont, out of Quadramont. We have to learn it. Otherwise, we don't get past the primary school. And I looked at the cobbles, and I looked at the quality of the cobble. They were real cobbles, like genuine cobbles. It wasn't like your little Spanish cobble sector that does nothing to the riders. No. The riders were bopping upside down. The bidons were flying everywhere. Proper, not S tier cobbles. I'd say about B+ when it comes to the cobbles, but it made an effect because there was a mechanical for Egan Bernal. He switches his bike with Kim Hajduk, his teammate. Now, I don't know the heights of the riders by heart, but I'm pretty sure Bernal's about 175 centimeters. Hajduk's about 184 centimeters. That's a difference of 9 centimeters. A difference of 9 centimeters means that your bike is a different size. And if your bike is a different size, then it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable for Egan Bernal to sit on a taller bike with a taller frame and so forth. So that is a scenario that you don't want to be on for too long because, well, it's not too great. So after that first bike change, Bernal went to the Peloton, and then a second bike change followed not too soon after, not too late after, I mean, because we saw the Ineos car from the breakaway, because Starling's in the breakaway. Remember this moment? Starling's in the breakaway. Ineos car is with Starling in the breakaway. That Ineos car from the breakaway moves back to the Peloton, and the Eurosport Italy now had like multi-screens, and on a different screen it was visible that the Ineos car tried to stop by the side of the road, the breakaway Ineos car, and tried to get the bike out to give it to Bernal as the Peloton passed, which that is not legal in this sport. Ghana got disqualified in the Tour de la Provence and thrown out of the race for that 2-3 years ago, maybe. Ineos realized that. They put the bike back in the car, and eventually they gave the bike differently at the back of the Peloton instead, which is allowed. So that's a bit of an interesting thing that happened there when it comes to the Ineos bike change. Maybe fail, maybe success, because at the end of the day, Bernal came back before any disaster struck, I would say. But that's Bernal's bike change. We're going towards the big climb of the day, the Cafa e Yogarasso. Was that correct?
Yeah. Yogarasse. Logarasse.
I'll take it.
And this climb, Trek take control. Dan Holler paces the first 3Ks. We see Wout van Aert at the back. He drops, probably the biggest name to drop in the first 3Ks of this climb or so. Conrad begins to pace, and then there's an attack 6 kilometers from the top. Finally, no one wants to let this, because it's still a big group. Trek are not trying to drop. After they drop Van Aert, you just want to keep numbers together at that point. The breakaway is on like 45, 50 seconds. They're under complete control. You just want to, it's more important for them to keep numbers. They pace with Conrad, but then Fortunato, Bilbao, Garafoli, maybe he was the first to attack the quick stepper. Or no, I
think Fortunato.
The camera,
I'm not sure.
The camera refused to pan to who was actually attacking to the left when they did it. But then Stora responded, Trek countered, and I thought, here we go. This is what the doctor ordered. This is what we thought we were going to get. You're not going to... Why would you let Trek just have it their own way and control this whole stage and climb? And I'm thinking, Stora, great opportunity for you to jump.
Yeah.
Same with Fortunato. And then I'm thinking, pretty much anyone except Primoz Roglic and Juan Ayuso, give it a crack. Because what's the worst that can... You know what? You're going to get dropped.
Well, probably not.
How much time did Fortunato lose today?
No time loss.
No time loss.
Because little Trek is the one that's trying to get to you.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it completely explodes, then something might start occurring, but that's not the case here. It's Fortunato, Bilbao, and Garofoli going. I would have liked to see, I've said it at the start, I would have liked to see a Jayco rider move with this. Like, whether it's Paul Double, whether it's Chris Harbour, whether it's a rider in that team like that, I would have liked to see a Jayco rider jump here. Maybe even Tom Pidcock. There's a teammate up the road in the breakaway. Could be an idea. At the end of the day, I would expect Pidcock to not explode in the last 5 kilometers of this climb and drop from a, what was it, 60, 70-man peloton still?
If you don't jump here, or if you don't try to make it hard for Little Trek, and they keep a fresh Vacek, fresh Ciccone...
Vacek. We got to correct ourselves.
Vacek, and maybe Conrad or Verona, it is automatic Pedersen stage win. Automatic Pedersen stage win. He just doesn't stuff these up. So yeah, I was really surprised. Maraveni after the stage was surprised. To Rai, he said, I expected something more from this stage. And I know Trek, it's not like the Trek group are going a dawdling. They give Fortunato gets a 45-second gap. Bilbao's not relaying with him.
Garofoli gets dropped.
Garofoli gets dropped, maybe because of they're worried about Fortunato GC against Tiberi, Italian rivalry. Anyway, it's not like Trek were not riding hard. They let the gap go, and then they rode the same pace as Fortunato, who's probably going really hard. So it's not like Trek weren't riding hard. That being said, not a lot of riders were dropping either. Not by a lot. Like Corbin Strong was hanging on.
Yep.
It was a much bigger group than on the first stage, and so I was surprised. That's all.
Yeah, you can't tell me that in this 80, 70-man peloton that is the left at this point, there's not a single rider of the teams that should be trying to make a move here, that they all can't. That is completely unbelievable to me. Like, at the end of the day, energy management's a thing in the sport, but at this point, that's not the case. That is simply not the case.
Yeah, Ina Rubio.
For example.
Wilco Kelderman.
For example.
Roman Bardet.
And Pidcock tries later, but that's too late. There's no point in trying with 1.5K to go.
But if you try with 1K to go, Pedersen, by dropping, Pedersen's literally going to slide from P3, and by the time he's at the back of the peloton, the climb's over. And
UAE.
And Ciccone is able to just go boom, 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 follow.
Yep.
Yeah, UAE actually controlled Pidcock. UAE looked good today.
Well, Ciccone initially controlled it, Vacek in the wheel, and then UAE controlled them.
Yeah. But yeah, Vacek was like the mountain controller along with Ciccone, and
so good, that man.
He's in such good shape, but he has to do one move, and then that's it. And yeah, I mean, credits to Pidcock for giving it a crack, but I have to say, UAE looked good.
Yep.
They had Arietta, Vine, Mignalti, Ayuso, Micah looking good. They were all in line at the top of the climb, and Roglic was isolated for a moment. It was like five UAEs at the front. But yeah, nothing happens. Fortunato and Bilbao get across over the top, and then there's a technical descent. Bilbao starts to lead it, and they're going to get caught because they're like 50, 60 kilos, and there's 30 Ks of pedaling like false start downhill. And UAE lead the descent, then Bahrain come over the top. We don't see any images really of the peloton on the descent on the main feed. And then we're going to have a sprint, which is the GC teams get very, very nervous. Maybe they didn't know what the road surface would be like, but it's a group of 80 riders.
Yeah.
80 plus riders. And which if you honestly asked a lot of people, would there be more than 50 riders in the peloton at the finish for this stage for the win? Most people would not have said over 50.
Especially after stage one.
Yeah.
Because that was super selective. That was a bit more punchy on the climb though, and definitely a bit more attacking in the end, I would say. But then you look at this stage and the climb was just ridden so passively outside of Fortunato and that group attacking. And that, I'm saying passively, the tempo was still significant, but it was not significant enough that no one could attack in the group. So I would have liked a couple of teams be more brave and dare to lose a race to be able to win one.
Aaronsman.
Yeah. He's lost time in GC. Might as well try, you know?
Give it a crack. I mean, who's going to take responsibility for controlling Aaronsman?
Well, little Trek.
But say Trek don't want to use Ciccone to do that, and he jumps.
Well,
I feel like UAE and Red Bull, there can be a staring contest between those two.
For sure.
I mean, and maybe their preference is to have a UAE rider. McNulty goes with Aarons, but you got to try to create that situation. That's why, I think a lot of us were expecting that sort of thing to happen. Anyway, we're coming into a sprint. The GC teams, they line up in formation. I think very much hindsight talking, but a little mini Poggio, like 1K, 7% climb, 5Ks from the finish, really would have kicked off, and maybe you would have had some attackers. But it's completely flat pretty much. There was a little roller where Caruso, looking very sharp, by the way, although a little bit too much in a domestique roll for Tiberi.
Fully in domestique roll today, buddy. I'm worried about your...
He's chilling. Tiberi was in his wheel, and that even stretched out the Peloton completely. And then apparently the GC Gats times were taken, not times, the 3K to go banner was extended to 5K to go for the crash
rule. 3-kilometer rule is a 5-kilometer rule today.
Because the road then becomes half a road, which almost made this safer because Trek and Bora literally put 2 riders each on the front and blocked going through the 3-kilometer to go. My favorite thing, by the way, is Roglic like riding as far as he can to the finish in the sprint groups. Like, he's like, fuck the 5K to go rule.
At some point, he's actually going to be fighting sprinters. Today was almost the case. In the last 1.5 kilometers, he was literally in P5.
A dog runs in front of them, and the Bora and Trek are like, holy, what's going on? Luckily, the dog just got out of there. And then we got a sprint. Big road. Vacek is on the front with 875 meters. 875 meters. And again, everyone's fighting for Pedersen's wheel. So Pedersen is literally just sitting in the wheel. No one's fighting him for the wheel. Sitting in the wheel after Ciccone pulls off. No one gets an organized lead out. Not a single other team in 80 riders gets an organized lead out.
Especially because if you consider Vacek being on the front for too long, you got to keep in mind, is he going to be able to keep that up until 250, 300 meters to go where Pedersen will launch a sprint? So then we see one team try to do that on the right side of the road. It's Fabio van den Bosche from Alpecin de Koning on the right side doing a lead out. But his sprinter, Quinten Hermans, isn't following his wheel.
Yeah, that was strange. I thought it was, Hermans didn't follow him. He got squeezed a little bit. Stays behind. And it's, who's beaten Pedersen from the wheel this year in a sprint? When he's launched his sprint?
Well, it's hard to judge because in the first part of the season,
but then he was out of
badly
position.
Positioned and lost from Bennett and so forth.
Yeah, but then he was out of position. Like, he's not easy to beat from the wheel in the sprint once he opens, because also guys don't stay in the wheel. So he goes at 250, and then guys, they stay in the wheel for a bit when he launches, and then they start trying to drag race him straight away. You gotta wait. With Pedersen, you have to wait. Like, who's the guy on Astana that won? In Turkey, like Malocelli, you have to wait almost like 30 meters to go and then do your 5-second burst there. Anyway, no one does the lead out. Vacek drops him off when he wants, and Pedersen wins the sprint with Corbin Strong. It looked like from the front angle he was running him a little bit close, and the overhead it actually wasn't that close. Pedersen wins ahead of Strong. Aular third, another good result for him. Rivera fourth, and then we got Italians from 5th through 12th, which is pretty cool, and even with one being relegated, so actually 5th through to 13th. Zambanini, Oldani, Vendrame, Fiorelli, Scaroni, De Preto round out the top 10. And that was the stage.
Trying to figure out why Marciulesi has been relegated from 8th to 85th. And I'm looking at the sprint, and yes, he was shouldering a little bit. That was definitely the case, but it was a lot less than some of the headbutts I've seen earlier this year. So I think that's a bit too harsh. I'm still trying to figure out why. I've watched it once now, rewatched it once focusing on Marciulesi. I keep saying the name wrong, even though I said it a billion times already. Marcellucci, I don't know why he's relegated. That being said, only Bardiani will really be too sad about that. Then again, they've got Fiorelli in 8th now, so they go from 8th to 8th.
Mads Pedersen retakes the Maglia Rosa. He's 9 seconds ahead of Roglic, 14 seconds ahead of his teammate Vacek. UAE still 4 through 6th. And tomorrow we have a early rest day because they're traveling. They're by ferry across to Italy. So we'll do our preview of stage 4 now from Alberobello Pietramadre to Lecce. It is the first actual sprint stage, pancake flat for the last 100 kilometers. No real climbs of note, a few little hills at the start to let a TV breakaway go. Caden Groves, Olav Koy, Sam Bennett, they will, probably even Trek, to be honest, for Pedersen to take more seconds, will absolutely lock this stage down for a sprint. When is Pedersen going to lose this jersey, Benji? He's going to hold it till stage 7.
Yes, because stage 4, 5, 6 are all basically sprint stages. There's one uphill sprint in there in Matera on stage 5. And then I look at maybe stage 6 could have like some breakaway action, but at the end of the day, there's enough versatile sprinters to try and control that stage, in my opinion. Stage 7 to Taglio Cozzo is really the stage where it gets intriguing, because you got to think about this now. Taglio Cozzo, that stage is the first proper mountain finish, has a climb at the start of that stage. I know I'm going to a completely different stage, by the way, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm probably annoying Luke, who's trying to get the right profile on the stream, etc. But regardless of that, stage 7 has a finish on top of Taglio Cozzo, the climb. And during that stage, I'm thinking, okay, Pedersen arrives in the pink jersey. In my opinion, I would love to see, I feel like it's a must. I need to see Red Bull Bora controlling that stage for a stage win for Primoz Roglic, because it's the only mountaintop finish in the first 14 days of the entire race, and it's a perfect Primoz Roglic stage where you can get 10 bonus seconds on top of the final climb. It's not necessarily, but in my personal opinion, I need to see that. And it works because the next day is a medium mountain stage where you can give your jersey away to a different team, to a different breakaway rider, and you can have them control the second week. It's perfect. It fits together.
Yeah, I'd hope so. I'm not sure it'll happen. So yeah, the sprint on stage 4, I'm going to go with Bennett.
You're going to go with Sam Bennett for the sprint on stage 4? No, I'm not doing that. He's been in good form this year, so I don't want to disrespect him either, but Olaf Koy is here, and I need to pick him, because if he doesn't win these flat sprint stages, or at least 2 of them, then it ain't looking very good. So he should win at least 2 sprint stages like this in the Giro d'Italia with the quality of a rider that he is. So I'm picking Olaf Koy for the sprint stage. And is it Lecce or Lecce? The double C? Petaki was 2 C's, right?
Yeah, Lecce.
And Kiki? Or was it Chichi back in the day? Francesco Kiki? Quick step sprinter?
Don't know who that is. Is he in this race?
Mate, that was like 15 years ago.
Yeah, so that was the Albanian Grande Partenza. I think somewhat surprisingly, there was a very hard stage on stage 1, and then kind of the favorites, I think the favorites won every stage pretty much. And then there was no real drama, apart from Landa unfortunately crashing out, I think he's going to be out of the Tour de France from what I've seen. There was actually not so much drama. No GC rider had a badly timed mechanical that cost them time today or in the time trial. It was kind of drama free. And then maybe in Italy, maybe because they had good weather, maybe in Italy it increases. Anything else from the last couple of days? Any team you were like, ooh, they're looking dangerous?
They're looking dangerous. Not sure I've had that feeling necessarily.
Apart from Trek, Trek looked good, of course.
The level of Fortunato today shows me that he couldn't win a stage here, but I think he's going for GC. Yeah. So I'm not sure that's going to be an option if that is the case, but I do expect him to be good for the rest of this race then. What was his time trial like, by the way, Fortunato? I don't remember.
Bad. Really, really bad, yeah.
What? Holy? He's on 2 minutes 30 of GC already.
No. That can't be right.
I'm looking at it.
No, that
He's on 2 minutes 30 of GC.
Where did he lose that? Maybe
Stage 1?
Yeah, he got dropped on stage 1.
Oh my God. Lorenzo.
How? That's what I mean. How the fuck did Lorenzo Fortunato get dropped on stage 1 and he's attacking today? I guess they're different stages. They're like it's like a power 10-minute climb repeated versus
it's different effort,
30-minute watts per kilo where positioning and draft was less important. But yeah.
That being said, my favorite memory of these last 3 days was being here in Albania with you, my friend, and with Luke,
very nice,
and
Benji.
with the whole team, with Mr. Rouge as well. And also, I love cycling as a sport, but what makes cycling great for me is that I can enjoy it with the people that also love cycling. And yes, Albania didn't have a massive cycling nation of people that came here for the race. There were quite a couple of people at the race here, not a major amount, but the people that were here passionately loving the sport, wanting to see riders, wanting to meet up with people, etc., and do what I love, which is admiring the sport that I love watching, and to be able to meet people that watch the Lanterne Rouge cycling podcast. I'm being attacked by a creature at the moment, some fly creature, and Patrick is trying to attack it. That's also a vile action. Nonetheless, I was trying to thank everyone for the support, and thanks for the nice words and all the meetings with people we had in the last couple of days, because that one makes what we do great.
Yeah, thanks very much to all of you and our sponsors for making trips like this possible, and to make it possible for me to win Monopoly Deal last night was, of course...
Mate, can we talk about that? Monopoly Deal is like a card-based,
so
shorter version of Monopoly.
No free ads.
No free ads. That being said, I played it for the first time last night, and I beat his ass the first game. So if he starts gloating about it...
I won the most.
Yeah, you won the most, but you lost against a super beginner who was playing for the first time. So I wouldn't be crying too much. That's like being Pogacar and losing on Plateau de Bay to Maresco.
Yeah, maybe in 23. Yeah, Benji looked in 23. Benji looked up. He typed into ChatGPT. He's like,
that's not what I did.
Benji typed in game theory optimized Monopoly Deal strategy hand by hand, and he's probably using. He's got headphones in using an AI thing that's like telling him the game theory optimized next move with his cards. So.
I literally looked up how to play Monopoly Deal for beginners on YouTube. That's all I did.
Just whoever has the most cards, attack them with rent. That's just I just attack people.
Yeah, you kept attacking me, but
yeah. So yeah, it's been great. We've actually had a really good time in Albania. It's been like probably one of the most enjoyable trips we've done.
If this podcast gets 2,500 likes, which that's going to be a stretch, we do a Monopoly Deal live stream at some point this year?
Yeah, for sure. If it 2,500 likes, we'll do a Monopoly Deal live stream during the Tour de France first
on
week.
YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube. Not on CNN. I think it'll have to be one of the YouTube channels that we have control over, I would say. Okay, thanks for listening as always. That was the recap of Giro. Rest day tomorrow, travel day tomorrow, and we'll see you on Tuesday for the recap of Stage 4. Until then, ciao, ciao.